Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 19 of The Beer Enthusiasts. First time featuring this Trappist brewery, Trappe Quadrupel, and also a style I don't think we've quite featured yet. We've featured at least one of the other Trappist breweries. I know we did Chimay Red, and we think we've done maybe one or two others, but this is in fact La Trappe. There was a long time where I could not figure out the difference between La Trappe and Roche and Trappist Rochefort. And Chris was like, "Stop confusing me." I,
It is
I was
confusing.
just,
It's like La Trappe, Trappist,
yeah,
Quadruple. It's
yeah.
it's not particularly easy to
I
remember.
just kept unintentionally gaslighting Chris every time we talked about one of those breweries. It's just
I told you.
unbelievable. Yeah, just God. But
Yeah, we've done. We did one of our early episodes a year ago was Saint Bernardus Christmas Ale,
right,
and that's kind of as close
yeah.
as we've gotten to normal quad.
Hmm.
And we featured a bunch of other Trappist breweries and kind of Abbey style breweries as well. So both in a plea to drink a lot of different Trappist style beers and Belgian style beers, and to feature a brewery that we haven't really featured yet. And it's an amazing beer to boot. So we don't need to make any
Yeah.
excuses for including this
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Exactly. Exactly. All true statements.
I'm going. I don't have La Trappe glassware, but I'm going to go with the big Allagash tulip.
Yeah, I don't have La
So,
Trappe glassware either, so I'm just going with chalice.
and the foam is just beautiful.
Yeah, this is heavenly. All right, I'm gonna
Worth
start running through some of the nice pour. Uh,
Yeah, I was going to say worth a quick mention. These beers are meant to be
so
poured with a really thick foam stand,
okay.
and
Oh, and where are we at on the?
I like to
Okay,
decant
all
them a
right.
little bit.
Not too bad.
I don't
Yeah,
for these particular styles. If you look at this one, we'll get into all the sensory, but it's leave the
right.
yeasty bits behind. They're just meant to condition and carbonate in the bottle, not really to drink.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like this recipe has maybe either changed a little bit over time, or maybe I'd be interested to see if we, see this beer again down the road now that we've kind of acknowledged some of its attributes of its change. Because I looked whenever we do Trappist beers, I always look through Brew Like a Monk because they have some of the recipes in there, and some of the numbers were a little bit different. They had like 9.5% ABV for that, but clearly the back of the bottle on this one says 10%.
Yep.
And they had it in Brew Like a Monk. It's like right around the 18 like IBU range, around I think it was like 20.5 degree Plato starting gravity, so probably maybe a little bit higher, or they let it attenuate a little bit longer. 81% apparent attenuation. They even weirdly, it's not often that there will be information on things like SRM and not other things like what hops are used. That's
Yeah,
usually SRM is pretty low on the on the popularity scale when it comes to recipe development for the public to be knowledgeable of. So yeah, 28 SRM. That's one we haven't had featured yet, but yeah, this is going to have that classic Belgian yeast. Going to be working at really high temperatures, usually maybe even a free rise, sometimes even open fermentation, very aggressive fermentation. Usually a quicker turnaround. These are just going to be kind of your any kind of continental hops is kind of what all of the guidelines for either BJCP or Brewers Association or things like that are going to say. So it's maybe Styrian Golding or something like that, but usually just for bittering, usually not too much of that hop character going to be coming through in a recipe like this. And then of course, usually for a lot of them, traditionally it's just a singular base malt is the majority of the malt bill, and then Belgian, dark Belgian candy sugar. But we've seen in other ones, we know Rochefort likes to use crystal malt in Rochefort 10. So there's some, and Chimay's got some wheat in some of their recipes. I think their double has wheat in it. So there's some outliers, but that's usually those two things are usually going to be there in spades, and those others are going to be kind of supporting supporting roles, if anything. So,
Yeah,
and then as Chris said, bottle conditioned. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and in a lot of instances, they might even use a little bit of roasted malt or something for color adjustment. They're not looking for a real roasty edge to the beer or anything.
Right.
But they don't use a lot of roasted malt for this one if they do use it, because it
No.
is on the pale side of the quad
Yeah,
lineups.
absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those where you hold it up to the light and it's got kind of these like almost like bronze like amber edges. But when you
Yeah,
kind of really kind of look to the center, then you can kind of see where, because people are probably thinking like 28 SRM, like that's borderline, that's like deep brown. And that's kind of what you're getting in, the kind of more center of the beer. Whereas kind of those outer ranges are giving some of those lighter colors. But
yeah,
obviously you
and
see the foam is, Chris's foam looks, really dense. It's already forming some lacing I can see. So,
yep.
um,
The color is really mesmerizing, and I think this is another point for decanting these Trappist
mm,
styles. Because if you get that, if you like the yeast or whatever, you put it in there. That's on you. Go
right.
for it. However you like to drink it is the way you should drink it. But when you add it, it gets kind of like a much muddier, dull color to it. And that's not everything, but you do eat with your eyes a little bit first. And this is
Right.
just like, as Scott mentioned, there's some red tones and orange tones, both rust and bronze, and it's a very mesmerizing looking beer if you decant it properly. I don't think it looks as cool when it's not decanted. So one more point, decanted.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of a light tan head poured with a ton of foam, pipe bubble structure. On
Mm,
the aroma, there's tons of just these like dark fruit. There's like dried dates. There's just kind of like your lighter kind of deep pitted red cherry.
yeah, dried cherries, a little plummy, a little figgy.
Yep.
It leads pretty fruity, but stopping short of, in some of the quads and triples, you can get a really distinct banana character, and there's certainly a little bit of that there, but
Yeah.
it leads with dark and dried fruit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's just a little bit of touch of herbaceousness, maybe like phenol, with a little bit of, phenol like pepperiness.
There's a little
So
bit
I
of
would,
like a bronzed kind of honey character. There's something that smells
yeah, that's a really good one.
floral, like a cooked or bronzed honey.
Yeah, that's a really good note. I like bronzed honey.
Smells
Yeah,
a
the
little bit
alcohol's
like
very,
candy sugar
very,
too. Like,
yep. Yeah, and the alcohol's very floral. It's very almost like pungent in like a green way, almost like rosemary.
yeah, and that green way, like you said too, almost bends that kind of peppery, clovey, spicy note
Yeah.
to like a smidge of green peppercorn or something like that. There's a
Yeah, green.
spice that's a little brighter than dark
Yeah.
pepper or just clove.
Yeah, yeah. I think green pepper is good. That's a good one.
Mm, well, let's dive in.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
This is
Well,
so good.
that's so good. I was reading um, some of the Trappist entries in Brewmaster's Table by Garrett Oliver. I always like to kind
Mm,
of start there for food inspiration. But he said two things about Belgian Dark Strong Ales that I really, really loved. One is he describes it as having a sweet center, even though they finish pretty dry for the most part.
right.
And that's such a good way to put it. Like sometimes we talk about, kind of which part of the palate or which part of the sip there's impressions of sweetness in. I think calling it like a sweet center, it's almost like you bite into a nougat or like a, Tootsie Roll pop and you get to the Tootsie Roll middle or whatever for a minute
Yeah.
and then it's a completely different experience after that. The second thing I really love that I think that you'll love is he used the language, or he said, drinking these fresh is obviously amazing, but he said, respectfully cellared, they'll be good for a long time. And I thought that
Yeah.
language of
God.
respectfully cellared is very important for
Jeez.
some of you,
It
including
is.
me out
Oh
there,
my
that
gosh.
don't
Yeah.
tuck away their beers very nicely.
Yeah. Jeez.
But
Yeah, it just
yeah, this,
continues with more of the dried fruit character. There's a little bit of nice kind of like lighter. Um, I don't know if there's a type of raisin that's between golden raisin and purple raisin, but it's something that kind of floats
yep.
in between there. Obviously, the floral alcohol character into that kind of lingers into the finish is a lot more prominent than it is on the aroma, which is to be expected.
Yeah, there's that big kind of potpourri note, but you don't have the feeling that you're drinking something fake or artificial. It's like a medley of dried, um, kind of dried wildflower and rose petals.
Hmm. Yeah,
Really, really pleasant. It's also
yeah.
what's so awesome about these beers is you can both smell and taste the alcohol, and there's a warming, but it's not an alcohol burn. It's not unduly
No.
like strong and overloading into the other flavors. It really is just a marriage of phenolic spice, fruity ester, floral alcohol to me. It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and I mean, if you read any sort of guidelines around styles like this, it really is that interplay that really makes these styles what they're known for. That there really isn't one thing that's really kind of standing out.
Yep.
It's about the interplay.
There's in comparison, this beer is getting a little bit more difficult to track down. You can still find it, but there are a lot. Luckily for us, there are a lot of just world class Belgian Dark Strong Ales available. This one is one of the palest of them. It's kind of in that Rochefort class,
Mm.
and I think if I was blindfolded, it'd be hard to tell how dark this beer is. I think because both with like the more green peppercorn note, some of those like lighter floral accents. There is some dark and dried fruit, but it's like you said, it's not like the world's darkest raisin. It's somewhere between golden and dark. There's a lot of stuff that's brighter than a quad might have you believe as you're drinking it. So that'd be an interesting experiment to try it literally blindfolded, where you can't see the
Yeah,
color. And I wonder if someone would call this a triple even.
yeah. That would be a fascinating experiment with this.
Mm.
Yeah, finishes dry enough but um not overtly dry. It feels like um there's enough of a residual sweetness that it kind of allows for the alcohol to kind of come in as like a wave where it can just kind of slowly build, and the
Hmm.
bitterness doesn't you know it doesn't over the bitterness then doesn't overwhelm and compound with the alcohol. It allows it to kind of be a wave rather than like a wall that just falls, that just kind of falls over and smacks you in the face, but something that you can kind of a nice wave that you can kind of ride into the finish. So I think it's really well balanced in that way. So again, there's this interplay of alcohol, residual sweetness, hot bitterness, and the perceived bitterness I would say is in the like medium low, if that.
Well, and you know what's really helping drive all of this is the carbonation.
Yeah.
It is highly carbonated. It just kind of like, pops all over your palate. And if this beer was completely flat, it would taste a lot more syrupy, I think, a lot
Mm.
heavier. And that just big Belgian carbonation is kind of the unsung hero of this beer for me. It lifts, snap, crackles, and pops everything on the palate, and it makes for a comparatively light drinking experience for something that's 10% ABV and extremely complex.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the kind of beer that when you pair with it, there's a lot to work with, but in our minds, that also means there's a lot of things that you can run into that can be problematic. So what did you end up, what did you, where did Brewmaster's Table lead you?
Well, so what's interesting is Brewmaster's Table does not spend a ton of time on quad.
Mm,
There's kind of a little blurb as a subset of Belgian style double, and just to mention that you can get away with richer versions of the food that you're pairing double with in the scenario of quadruple. And so, not a ton of ideas. There's some traditional stuff that they mentioned, obviously, Carbonade Flamande, which usually is more double or Flanders red brown territory. Um, but lots of really good suggestions on meaty dishes. I mean, this is kind of a beer that's
Mm.
gonna stand up to game, super fatty meats, big beef dishes, and I think what it does scream for is something fatty,
Yeah.
which is a little bit more difficult to do. So spicy is difficult with high alcohol. This also has kind of like a little. It's not capsaicin spicy flavor, but it's got a phenolic spicy flavor that would accentuate that too. But the real, I mean, it's just begging for a fatty dish, I think, just for the carbonation to get in there and scrub some things away. A component of a lot of fatty dishes is like a cream or something like that, which is just going to be beautiful with the esters and the phenol character. And
Hmm.
so my first thought was pot pie, but with mushrooms. You get that like creamy, gooey center, and
Yeah.
we've got mushrooms, carrots, some other aromatic vegetables in there that kind of just like creamy chicken pot pie sauce, but I'm making it vegetarian. Mushroom is a angle that I take with a lot of darker Belgian beers because I think that kind of earthy fungal character is a really good um, contrast to some of the fruitier and spicier character, and it's obviously a good match with any umami that you're getting. But and then a traditional pot pie crust is just the like kind of flaky, buttery. You're getting some more fat into the situation there, and so it's hard to make vegetarian cuisine heavy. I think that's a way that you can do
Mm.
it, and then this beer is going to stand up to that, and you're going to have a lot of great complement with that, just sort of like creamy, earthy center. And I thought about a bunch of other mushroom dishes too, and it's difficult to know whether they would stand up to it or not. So I wrapped it all up in a pot pie. But we've said mushroom risotto a bunch of times, and I think that that could be really nice, especially
Mm.
depending on how you spice it. And then fried oyster mushrooms are great. Get that kind of fried, slightly Maillard type character in there, really kind of just like singing with um, whatever kind of that bronzed honey crystal malt type characters in there. And then, we just finished up Thanksgiving time. I think this could be a
Mm.
really good hero at the Thanksgiving table. Um, cranberry sauce would be a really good accompaniment with all the kind of like denser stuff that you have. But some people do either both or like a honey baked ham at
Mm.
Thanksgiving, and I think that that would be money.
Yeah.
That just like that glaze, that crispy glaze, that would be super awesome. But I'm talking about stuff that's not in my usual territory, so I'll let you take some of that over. But mushroom pot pie, that's
Nice.
that's my move.
Yeah, I would be, regress to not mention that my parents had some friends over, and there was one of their friends really enjoys beer, and my mom said, "I'm making chili. What should I pair it with?" And I said, "This is the style you should ask for if you can get." And then I, sent them a bunch of different commercial examples that they could choose that they would easily be able to find, and it was just like they were just all like, this was incredible, like
Oh, awesome!
this is amazing together. And because beef stew is the is kind of the classic pairing that you're going to find in Belgium. You're going to find them not only pairing with this but also cooking the dish with that particular style. So what's the kind of Americanized version of that? It's everybody's got their own chili. um,
Yeah.
so that turned out great. But it was interesting. The first thing I kind of thought of was, you're going to be playing a lot off the dark fruit character. I was also in the fatty meat territory, and I thought, bacon wrapped dates would be interesting. And then I thought
Mm.
maybe there's an interesting way to do that, but kind of flip the roles of the meat and the date a little bit. So I decided to go with pork belly burnt ends wrapped in date fruit leather.
Mm.
So rather than wrapping the
Cool.
bacon around doing that, yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool, just kind of, again, kind of switching those roles a little bit. And then when I was researching, someone, said that they make a really good plum focaccia bread. And I was like, I can't say no to it. Can't say no to that. That sounded way too good. Because again, the herbaceousness of the rosemary, this green, I'm so glad there's this green peppercorn note. I think those are going to be perfect together. That florality of the alcohol is going to be really great with with rosemary. There's going to be It's an olive oil based bread, so there's going to be a lot of fat in there for phenols. The plum is going to be the big, the driving, the driving complement. Obviously, the date fruit leather and the pork belly burnt ends. All of these dark fruits having a little bit of char flavor to that, or even any sort of acidity that kind of comes from any sauce that you want to put on that.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it's maybe going to lean those fruits from dried to actually being more kind of maybe slightly underripe, having a little bit more of like a juiciness to them, having some more of that acidity. So that could maybe even be an interesting kind of interaction that, makes the pairing kind of unique. And like you said, the fun part is that this has cutting power in every which way. It has alcohol and it has really high carbonation. So you can pretty much throw anything at this and your every single bite is going to seem like it's the first one. And so that's why everybody loves pairing with dishes like this. And that's always the first thing they say, when I ask people to pair dishes, that the first thing they say is, this has a lot of fat, so I'm going to go with something Belgian because it's got high carbonation.
Yeah.
So while we're ones who are trying to think outside of the box, that at some point it's it's cliche. Things are cliche because they're true. Like that's the
Yeah.
that's the part you can't deny. Like that's the reason something becomes cliche in the first place.
And that's the other little bit of advice that Garrett Oliver gives in Brewmaster's Table is he says, you have a beer of this complexity and you're just entering the world of food and beer pairing. It can seem intimidating because there's so much going on. And am I going to do something wrong? This beer, while you could maybe do something that's not the most appealing if you mismatch intensity too severely, really, as long as you're in the same intensity range, this is going to be fun. And you hinted at something. I wonder what you think about this. If you're in barbecue land already, I think you can both, depending on your philosophy of food pairing, food and beer pairing, use whatever kind of like sweeter, sticky sauce, barbecue type sauce that you might use as a really great complement. Obviously, there's just so much synergy between kind of the sticky, sweet, and fruity ester character of the center of this beer with that. Or if you did like a much simpler, like Central Texas style barbecue, that's really just salt and pepper, baby, and you let this kind of be this the stand-in
Right.
for complexity against something
Mhm.
that's honestly quite simple. It just takes time and patience
Right.
for the most part. I think that's then you're going to find a lot of really good cutting and contrasting with that fatty character, and you might decide you don't even need the sauce. It's up to you where you're from, what kind of barbecue you like. But both of those, despite one being simple and one having like a more complex sauce, both are intense and are going to interact with this beer miraculously, I think.
All right, and then dessert, the one where maybe things could go wrong if you go a little too sweet. But what did you come up with?
Yeah, I wanted to do, I don't know if this would be too much, but since the banana character is not big in this beer,
Yeah.
it's there, but it's not huge. I wanted to just do like bananas Foster. And that's a little bit of foreshadowing to a beer that we want to go over here in a week or two. But um, just that like candied banana, it's often like flambéed with rum, and I think this quad, but also a lot of quads in particular, have that just kind of like rummy, fermented, sugary type character, even if they're not super duper sweet. And so hopefully this would hold up to it. A little bit of ice cream, flambéed, kind of rummy bananas Foster. Usually has a little bit of cinnamon in there, which is a complementary spice that is not readily evident in the spice character of the beer. So I think that could be really nice. And then you could, if bananas Foster is a little bit too trite for whatever reason, I think a lot of other banana dishes would work nicely. Kind of a banana nut bread, or do one of the beer enthusiast's favorite things, which is make something and then turn it into like French toast or breakfast. Some banana bread French toast. A little bit of maple syrup on that. It's kind of Now I'm hungry again.
That's exactly where I went. I was doing some research and stumbled upon this, and the thing that made me choose it was it said, if you don't have this as a dessert, it can easily be a main dish or a side for breakfast or brunch. And I thought that's on brand. So that's the one we're choosing, and it's a dish that I had never heard of. It's called a clafoutis. It's spelled Clafoutis, and it's a French dessert, and it's traditionally with black cherries. And then there's kind of like rub a dish, with, you kind of spread some, room temp butter all around to cover the dish. And then it's this, thick pourable batter. And there's been lots of ways that people have, have described it. The one I saw the most was kind of creating almost like a tart that doesn't really have a true like pie crust to it, but you're just kind of getting that Maillard crust, from the spreading of the butter, and then, just heating that.
Yeah.
But again, you're just kind of leaning into a lot of fat that any phenols or any alcohol or anything like that can either cut or contrast, and then you've just got black cherries. Again, it's still probably being cooked down a little bit, but something that's not going to be overly sweet. You're putting these with with what's going to be a somewhat sweet batter. So this isn't something where you need to be making like a compote or anything where you're adding an obnoxious amount of sugar to break down the cherries or anything. You're just letting the cooking process do that instead. So maybe holding on to a little bit of that tartness, so you don't have an overtly sweet dish, but a dish that's balanced in and of itself, much like the beer is. And so hopefully it's just two balanced things that are just adding a little bit more complexity and complementing each other in really fun ways.
Well, and I think, you have to guard yourself against having a dessert that's too sweet with a lot of Belgian beers that finish dry. But this one, I think you're more correct early on in the episode where, yeah, it doesn't finish cloying or super sweet, but there is just a very pleasant, minimally sweet mouth coating character to it. And so I think you can get away with some sweetness just fine. And it's sort of
Yeah.
like, letting this be the spice to your dessert, whether you're having, cardamom whipped cream. Cardamom spice whipped cream is something I had recently that's like, okay, that would create a lot of good synergy. Put that on some sweet potato pie and let the rest of the spice character of the beer be, kind of be the star of the show. And so, yeah, this beer is not too dry. You don't want like some gut bomb of a super duper fudgy chocolate dessert. I don't think,
Yeah.
because I think that that'll spike alcohol, spike dryness. Maybe
Yeah.
create some weird sensations. But you can do medium plus sweet on some of these like
Yeah.
otherwise kind of Maillard and fruity dessert stuff, and I think it'd be really really yummy. That clafoutis sounds really good.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of things I'm noticing in here. Like, if anybody decides to just have some barbecue and then just, you know, look, you all know for Christmas you're gonna get like this 4-pack of barbecue sauce because somebody heard that you like barbecue. Make something, pour all 4 sauces, and get one of these and tell us which one's the best. Is it just salt and pepper? Is it Alabama white sauce? Is it vinegar based? Just let us know what the best barbecue sauce is. So if somebody puts that up and does that experiment before I do,
That's amazing.
that would be
Tis the
fun.
season of like sample pack
Yeah,
gifts,
that's
so you have a
exactly
lot to
it.
experiment with.
God. Yes. Oh, and do it for our benefit.
Yes,
So,
yes. We're only in this for what we can learn about it. So please report back.
yeah, please. Uh, all right. We've got the next couple of weeks lined up. We just recently had, as Chris noted, we recently had Thanksgiving, and that means Bourbon County, is just around the corner, if not maybe even available for some of you already, if it's already hit distro for you. And we are going to be doing Bourbon County Bananas Foster. But I feel like that's one of the ones that's kind of in the like lots of people are going to get that variant. It's not the Eagle Rare one. It's not I think the other one is the Knob Creek barrel aged one. Those ones are kind of, hit or miss, kind of depends on where you are. But I feel like Bananas Foster is going to be with the base variant and the backyard stout and and I think maybe there's one more, but hopefully you all can find that. And then if you don't want to do that, just get the bourbon. If you can find the Bourbon County base, get that. If there's a banana stout that you really like, that's getting released around this time, or that maybe you've got, as we said, that's sitting in your cellar and you need a reason to drink it. This episode's going to be it, because we'll be talking about different kinds of banana additions and how you can do that. And we'll be talking, through that with, sensory. And if there's different beers that are kind of trying to accomplish similar things, we're always interested to see, what different outcomes are like. And so yeah, pick up some, start the Bourbon County hunt now, so you can have that ready for next time. And then the week after that, we're going to do Shores beer. We're going to do Kostritzer for us. But again, just find, especially we love supporting, local breweries that are making a beer like that, like Schwarz beer. So make sure to track one of those down for a couple weeks from now.
And Kostritzer is easy to find if you don't have a local Schwartz beer. So that's one of the more widely available ones. So we're excited we kind of ramped it up the last couple episodes. We've got this quad. We're going to do Bananas Foster Imperial Stout. Then we'll dial it back down to Schwartz beer and see where it takes us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. Chris is Fresh Beer Enthusiast. I'm Vintage Beer Enthusiast. We are also at the Beer Enthusiasts on Instagram. Again, thank you so much for your support and tune in. We will see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers, friends.